Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm your host Brandon Kipp. Behind me is a 2021 Audi e-tron Sportback, and today we're going to take it off-road. So now let's quickly talk about tires, which are arguably one of the most important things off-road. So these are 20-inch wheels. They come with the black optic package that this car has, but you can get 19s, which are obviously a little better for off-road, and you can get up to 22s, which I wouldn't even attempt taking off-road. The tread depth is decent, and they're really more of an all-season tire, so not ideal for what we'll be tackling today. But it is what it is. You know, they're the stock tires. We're not going to be changing anything with the car. We're not going to be airing it down, just driving it the way it came from the factory. So let's see how it goes.
So before we get started, let's talk about some of the car's off-road programs. So the two main off-road programs are all-road and off-road, all-road being the less aggressive one and off-road being the more aggressive one. On all-road mode, basically what it does is it just raises the suspension to a higher height, and it tries to blend in the front motor a little more because this is a dual motor setup. And in off-road mode, it basically changes the traction control programming, so it gets a little more aggressive at sending power around a little quicker, and it's actually pretty noticeable too. There are 5 different air suspension heights. When you go into all-road or off-road, it'll go into the second highest height, which is about 8.2 inches of ground clearance. And then if you activate the lift function to go to the 5th height, the highest, it'll actually raise it up an additional 0.6 of an inch to give you 8.8 inches of ground clearance. Now, I usually don't use the lift function when off-roading because I've found that it kind of makes the articulation a little worse. That's just the nature of air suspension. But if you really need it, you can. The main problem with this car's off-road capability is actually the approach angle. The approach angle is pretty bad in the front, and it's like 18 degrees, so on paper it's okay, not that great, but in practice it's really not that great. So one of the main tools with off-roading a modern car is cameras, and this car has a lot of them. So you can basically go to your front view, front with trajectory lines, another overhead view, rear, front tires, which are super useful when maneuvering around rocks, and rear tires. And then you have this 3D view, which is incredible. You can basically see all around the entire car. I don't really understand how it can see all the way up to that hillside, but it can, so that's all that matters. So especially if you're alone and you don't have a spotter like I am today, this is going to be super helpful. So that's basically an overview of all the off-road tools we have today, and there are a lot of them. So let's get right into it. Now, one of the nice things with this car's driving dynamics on a road like this is that with active dampers, it can basically totally change the feel of the car based on what you're doing. So right now I have it in comfort mode because these are some bigger bumps and I don't want to get wheels hopping off the ground and things like that as I'm kind of going down this mountain road. But you can easily switch it into dynamic mode, which firms up the dampers. And the nice thing is that this is not really specific to the e-tron, it's just more of a case with cars that have active dampers. But when you make a sudden movement, like a sudden lane change or something like that, or an emergency maneuver, the car immediately figures out what's going on, and even if you have it in a mode like comfort, it's going to immediately stiffen up the dampers and get the car ready to perform the maneuver properly and safely. So I just think that's generally something that's underappreciated in the world of modern cars, because the fact that these cars can react so quickly to changing road conditions is pretty amazing. This will be especially important when off-roading today because we'll be focusing on slippery conditions, so we'll really put this dual motor system to the test and see how quickly it can send power around. Since you don't have a drive shaft or anything physically connecting the front axle and the rear axle, power transfer is almost instantaneous. It's really useful. That's one of the benefits of an EV. So we've arrived at the off-road park, and I've engaged all-road mode because this is more of a fire road until we get to the more serious off-road terrain. One of the other things I'm going to do before we get started is actually disable our hold assist, which holds the brakes for you. when you're at a stop. I don't want this on because I want complete control over the car, and I don't want to have to hit the accelerator just to get it to move, especially when you're going downhill already. Now, one of the things I just did with this car was I pulled the fuse for the pedestrian warning sound just while we're off-roading, because while this is a mandated thing to have sound in all electric cars, it's not really necessary when we're out in the middle of the woods, and I would prefer just to not have to hear anything than hear this fake sound when there's no one that will be. So one of the things that is not so good about this car when taking it off-road is the approach angle. The approach angle is about 18 degrees, which really isn't that good. So you have to go really slow over all these ruts, because if you are going fast and you happen to bottom out the suspension or compress the suspension more than you'd like, then you're going to have a serious problem and you're going to scrape the front end of this car. So as we're climbing here, one of the things you'll notice is the consumption. The consumption is out of this world. It's over 1,000 watt hours per mile. And the trip computer doesn't show anything under 1 mile per kilowatt hour. So who knows how much higher it actually is than that figure. Of course, this isn't specific to EVs. This can be the case with really any car when taking it off-road. But it is something to notice that while of course you are going to use more energy when off-roading a car like this, you will with any car. So we still have traction control fully on for this. Big puddle here. Oh wow, jeez. You can hear some of the muddy water kind of interfering with the parking sensors here as well. Now, one of the interesting parts about off-roading an electric car, besides the silence, is the fact that you basically have one gear that'll take you from rock crawling to top speed. So it's pretty cool, and it makes it way easier to drive this car with the instant torque as well. So I have turned stability control completely off, just so I can have a little more control. And sometimes what you want in the mud, what you want in the mud is to actually have some wheel spin. This car doesn't really like to give you much wheel spin though. I think part of it is just as a safety measure, but it's also because of the induction motors. The induction motors are pretty slow off the line, and you can really tell with some of those hill climbs, you can basically be at almost full power and barely be able to crawl up. And of course, part of that is the way the car is tuned with the torque curve, but the other part is just the fact that you really don't have Now it's kind of fun to be able to slide this car around a little bit. Of course, we can't go too crazy because we are in a forest and we have a lot of trees and also bikes and other obstacles in our way. Now, one limitation with air suspension when off-roading is obviously that the articulation is not going to be that great. That's one of the reasons why you only should use the highest setting in this car if you really need to. So in a case like this, where you really start to get sideways, you can definitely still feel the stability control kicking in. You can feel the ABS pump kind of clicking a little bit. And that's mainly for rollover protection, but I do wish it was a little more off. This car really doesn't allow much wheel spin, and that's pretty noticeable in situations where you want to try to get it sideways. Even with stability control fully off, we are just sliding. Even with stability control fully off, you can definitely tell that it likes to kick in. Like, I have it completely off here and I can still hear the ABS pump clicking away. So it's really not off. when it says off, which is kind of unfortunate. So you can really tell. You try to get it to work around, and it just, stability control is anything but off. Like, I'm really getting it sideways, and I'm really hearing like click, 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 click from the ABS pump. So you can see here, with big ruts like this, you really have to take it nice and slow, because the approach angle in this car, as I've said before, is pretty bad. So there's a first for everything, and a first for an e-tron is probably to be parked next to a vehicle like this. Now, of course, this car has seen it all when it comes to abandoned vehicles. But this is just a little bit different. So now that we've had our fun in the mud, it's time to try some actual tests with this car. So I'm about to try this hill climb here, and one of the problems with doing something like this is the fact that, let's say that you get almost all the way up and you just want to roll down because you're losing traction and you're not going to make it. This car doesn't allow that. This car tries to hold you in place with motor torque, and it's pretty annoying because it's going to try to spin the wheels when there's no traction already to begin with. And that's not what you want in a situation like this. Putting the car into reverse requires you to put your foot on the brake, which makes no sense either because this is an EV, and one of the benefits of a drivetrain like this is the fact that you could also just roll back and the motors would just change directions. So I'm really not going to push this car too much on this hill because we have a tree we could slide into, and at the end of the day this is more of a test of tires than anything, but we'll definitely be coming back when it's drier to try this hill again. So here goes nothing. I'm not going to take it with speed. Hey, wait a minute. Okay, so right now we have no traction, but the car is not letting us get wheel spin even with traction control off. So that's one of the limitations. So I'm going to back off and nice and easily, very slowly, try to control our descent, because we do not have a lot of traction here. That's why I'm so glad I have our hill holder off, and the bailout plan is to the right if we can't stop, so we don't hit that wood. So we are just totally sliding right now. Wheels are locked, like totally sliding. If this car had better tires, we are totally sliding. Like, wow, okay. So if I had the courage to hit that with speed, we could probably do it. But I don't have the courage to do that with that tree right there. The car's made it up all these hills before when it was dry, but I don't trust it in the wet. Now, one of the benefits of something like this is that you can really just crawl because you have instant torque. So we are slipping here. We are just sliding to the side. But you can basically just crawl right up this effortlessly because of the fact that we have full torque at 0 motor RPM. Yeah, I have no control over this car in the mud. It just slides wherever it wants. So let's try to find something a little easier. I'm gonna go up there and let's see how it does. Yeah. So as soon as you kind of, as soon as you kind of get on the brakes at all, you just slide. And of course, that's not specific to this car, but it is specific to cars with tires that are not meant for anything like this. I can't see anything. We're gonna go traction off, fully off. When you put the car into off-road mode, it actually activates a different program for the traction control. And it's definitely more aggressive, and I like it better because it helps distribute power around much quicker than you might expect. Ooh, I do not feel, yeah, we are shuffling to the side here. Wow, okay. So there's a whole track over here. I just don't know how much of it we're gonna be able to safely do in this car. As I said before, when I was here with an F-150, it was very sketchy. And that was with all-terrain tires. We have all-season tires. Okay, get a feel for the surface. Okay, I can still stop. Now this is a pretty interesting abandoned vehicle here. Looks like someone was using it as a bike jump. Huh, cool. Okay, it actually feels relatively dry around parts like this, which is nice. So I think what we're gonna try as a great test of the camera system is, let's go on this narrow section and get a feel for how the cameras help us with maneuverability. Try to roll down. I'm gonna get a feel for the braking here. Okay, that's actually pretty good. I hear a compressor on. I think that might be for the air suspension. I don't think that's for active cooling, because we haven't been driving this car hard by any means. Oh yeah, let's just get a little sideways. That is way too muddy. That's where we had all the problems with the F-150. So I'm doing frequent stops like this because I'm trying to get a feel for the surface and see exactly how easy it is to control this car and whether it's safe to keep going or not. So this is a very narrow section. Look at this. This is like, it's a stump on my right. So if we start slipping, I'm just going to turn around. I'm sorry, but it's not worth the risk. Okay, it actually feels pretty controllable. I'm surprised. I thought it would be way more slippery than this. Yeah, this feels actually controllable. So let's keep going. Why not? Now, really anything wider than this would not work. This is extremely narrow. We cannot afford any slipping. Okay, tiny bit of slipping, but it's pretty controllable. Okay, try a hill start. I forgot that I don't have the hill holder on. Brake torque it. Okay, complete control. This is fine. Turn the wheels for safety and get out and set up our tripod. Do not slide down. Okay, I'm sorry, but as much as I want to get out of this car to set up my tripod right now, as soon as I let off the brake with the parking brake on, the car starts sliding down. Even though the front motor is still locked up, it slides down. So as much as I want to set up the tripod, we're gonna have to do in-car cameras for this. One nice thing that I think I really should mention though, is besides that compressor noise, with the fake sound removed, we are dead quiet when driving through things like this. It's awesome. Like, it's completely silent. Like right now, we're moving, but you hear nothing besides just the tires a little bit. Oh, okay. 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 We are a couple inches from that tree. Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay. We're good. We're good. Whew. Oh my God. Okay. Really careful. Okay, no. Okay. We are gonna have to back down. But we are sliding. So I might have to find a... Okay, we're about to hit that stump. Okay. Okay. Why are we sliding that way? Jesus Christ. Okay. Just for a second, we're gonna have to park up here. Okay, so here's the plan. We are gonna turn around. We wanna stay where there's traction, which is on the sides of this trail. So we're gonna turn around, we're gonna come down. If I feel in control, I'm gonna keep going this way. If not, I'm gonna bail out this way. And here we'll actually have traction and control over this car. In fact, I think I might just bail out this way to begin with. I'm not 100% sure. But we're gonna do that and see how it works. So I'm gonna try to go straight back. Okay, I actually feel in control. Okay, once this front goes off the edge here, okay, we're gonna turn. Okay, actually this is what I want though.
Wow, well that was quite an adventure. It definitely wasn't very fun getting that 6,000-pound electric SUV out of the woods all by myself. You join me next to a Tesla junkyard a few months after this incident happened, now that I've mentally recovered. So one of the things you might be wondering is, why wouldn't I simply try to back down the hill? Well, the main reason is actually pretty obvious. When you're on an incline like this, the front wheels are going to have very little weight on them. So when you try to turn while going backwards, the front end is just going to simply slide out. And in that case, with such little margins on each side, maybe a couple inches, the front end is going to swing out and hit a tree. So I'm happy that I did what I did. I think the bigger picture here is this shows how important tires are when off-roading, especially if you don't even air down. Although the all-wheel drive system was pretty impressive, there was only so much it could do with these stock all-season tires. So I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.